And ladies and gentlemen, we are live from our New York City studios here on the Steve Malzberg Show. What a day. Roger Stone will join us momentarily, then Mary Matlin. But I got to tell you, Donald Trump just finished his speech at AIPAC. Hillary Clinton had gone earlier in the day, blasted Donald Trump, and everybody said, oh, what a wonderful speech. John Kasich went just before Donald Trump, and everybody said, wow, what a wonderful speech. Donald Trump read from a prompter, which they all do. I've never seen him do that before, okay? And he gave the most comprehensive speech. If I had written this speech for Donald Trump to give before AIPAC, supporting Israel and ripping apart Palestinian culture and incitement and what they teach their kids, I couldn't have done a better job. Let's listen to some of it.
But I didn't come here tonight to pander to you about Israel. That's what politicians do. All talk, no action, believe me. My number one priority is to dismantle the disastrous deal with Iran.
All right. Iran was first and foremost on his list. He called it the worst deal ever. He's going to dismantle the deal. And then he said this.
Do you want to hear something really shocking? As many of the great people in this room know, painted on those missiles in both Hebrew and Farsi were the words, Israel must be wiped off the face of the earth. You can forget that. What kind of demented minds write that in Hebrew?
He went on to talk about the United Nations being biased against Israel. There'll be no imposed solution. How the Palestinians don't want peace, the Israelis do. Incitement, what they teach their kids. How when a fireman is the hero in your society, kids grow up to be firemen. How in the Palestinian world it's terrorists. Unbelievable compared to the previous things he said. So I was very pleasantly surprised and very impressed. He got several standing ovations from the folks in attendance at AIPAC. Joining us now, Roger Stone, Republican political consultant, editor of StoneZone.com, and author of The Clintons' War on Women and Jeb and the Bush Crime Family. Hello. Roger, you got the hat on? I'm set, baby.
Well, Steve, Donald Trump is a radical Zionist. Who knew?
Right.
This was a tour de force. He hit all the hot buttons. You can clearly see what I hear is the positive influence and the conversations that Newt Gingrich has been having with Donald. He has always said that he is an unabashed supporter of Israel. He fleshed it out. This is the new Trump. I think as the race goes on, you'll see Trump getting more and more specific about his issue positions, more specific about his proposals for America. This was a great speech today.
It was. So I was going to ask you, first of all, for the first time since he announced, I think I've seen Donald Trump giving a speech that was written, I would assume, for him, which is not everybody has speeches written for them, and he was reading it. Is that something we might see more of going forward?
Well, Donald is still unscripted, and he does work from notes. You saw that very effective speech the night of the New Hampshire primary. Even more effective speech the night of the South Carolina primary. You can actually see him referring to notes. But I think on some of these substantive policy issues, it's important to have his exact words because it makes it much harder for Lion Ted Cruz to distort them. Now
you said Newt Gingrich. So are you saying that Newt Gingrich had an influence in this in what Donald said at AIPAC a bit?
Well, I know that Donald has a very high regard for Gingrich and vice versa. Newt has been very aggressive in defending Donald from the attacks by Mitt Romney. I think Gingrich realizes that Trump is the presumptive nominee of this party. And I know they speak and have a fondness. I also know where Gingrich stands on these Middle Eastern issues because he is Israel's best friend. So some position on my part, but not much.
Okay, let me ask you about this. There was a meeting today with Donald Trump and some Republican elected officials, senators, congressmen, some supporting him, some not supporting him. Give me your read on that. What was accomplished there?
I haven't seen the fallout from that, Steve. So a lot of the inside the Beltway conservatives, of course, have a premium on complaining. And it's the way to get your name in the paper and to raise a few more dollars. So and you're never going to please the purists. I don't argue that Donald Trump is a pure conservative. I only argue that he's the best choice for conservatives this year because on the 4 or 5 major issues facing the country, he has the most reliable and hardest line conservative position, and he's a man who actually gets things done.
Well, you've written extensively about the plot to undermine Donald Trump. A couple of things. First of all, the chairman of the RNC over the weekend seemed to change his tune a little bit, whereas maybe I'm under the wrong impression. I thought he was rock solid as saying that it's very unlikely that there's going to be any brokered convention, very unlikely. And now he's saying he's not so sure. He also can't guarantee all of a sudden that one of the 3 candidates that we now have will get the nomination. Does this concern you, what I interpret as a change in, if not rhetoric, at least in tone to a certain extent?
Look, Reince Priebus is an establishment stooge. He's a pawn with a Bush-Romney background. The Republican establishment will stop at nothing to steal this from Donald Trump. I've written extensively about this at both Breitbart and the Daily Caller and at StoneZone.com. Donald Trump needs to beware these Trojan horse delegates that are being falsely claimed to be Trump delegates who, although they would be bound to vote for Trump on the first ballot, could vote against him on procedural matters such as rules that are designed to rob this convention from Trump, or a credentials committee fight where there's an attempt to unseat some Trump delegates. So the Trump campaign needs to be prepared for all of this. The Republican establishment, many of whom wear a second hat as lobbyists, will never throw in the towel, Steve.
Let me ask you about John Kasich. He was out there, listening to him. He seems delusional that he's going to be the nominee and he's the only one who could beat Hillary and he's going to get it at a brokered convention. But having said that, there's talk that Kasich and Trump have cut some kind of deal. And that he'll be the VP down the road. Is there any truth to that as far as you know? Have they talked about that?
I can't see Donald Trump taking a running mate who's for Common Core, who has supported NAFTA and all of the international globalist trade deals that have destroyed the American economy, particularly in the Midwest and Northeast. I also know that he disagrees with Governor Kasich on the expansion of Medicaid. So I think it is unlikely, Steve. Trump will decide on a vice president when he has to and when he's ready to. Not now.
Who do you think is the best VP pick within the other 2 candidates or on the outside? And interestingly enough, he was interviewed by Wolf Blitzer earlier today, and he just said, it's not likely, but stranger things have happened when he was talking about, of all people, Ted Cruz as a VP pick. So does that resonate with you at all? And if not, who do you see or who do you think would serve him best as number 2 on that ticket out of everybody?
Well, let me say a couple things. First of all, recognize that it's very hard to appoint a guy or take a guy for vice president or say appoint him to the U.S. Supreme Court if you've called him the biggest liar in American politics. Notice Kasich and Trump have never engaged, not directly, not with anything that is permanently harmful. So I think Ted Cruz, frankly, is damaged goods. I also think the voting irregularities in Texas, Kansas, Oklahoma, surrounding those Republican primaries are deeply troubling and could constitute a credentials challenge from the Trump people before this fight is over.
All right, so who would you think? Is it going to be a woman, a minority woman? I mean, what do you think helps him the most, assuming he gets the nomination?
I would not go for that kind of symbolism. I frankly think it's a wide open question. Trump's a businessman. He won't rule anybody in or anybody out until he has to. It may be one of his opponents, although I kind of doubt it. In a perfect world, I'd like somebody with some government experience who can be the implementer of the Trump agenda. But I would not presume to suggest a name. Only one man's going to make that decision. That's Donald Trump.
All right. Well, you could tell him I'm still open to the possibility. I want to put something on screen. Elizabeth Warren has now jumped into the mix, and I love Donald's response. But let's put up a tweet. She had a couple of tweets, 96 and 97, and she blasted Donald Trump. I hope we can put that up so I could see it. Otherwise, you'll have to take my... Yeah, there it is. Donald Trump knows he's a loser. His insecurities are on parade. Petty bullying attacks on women, cheap racism, flagrant narcissism. And there may be another one up there as well. The way I see it, it's our job to make sure Donald Trump ends his campaign every bit the loser that he started it. Why do you think Elizabeth Warren cares if Donald Trump is the nominee or not? He fired back to say something about Indian, which of course she falsely claimed she had Indian blood in her. That's the reference. But why is she getting involved?
Look, Donald Trump needs to send a long list of thank you letters out. The Pope should get one. Vicente Fox should get one, the former president of Mexico. I'd send one to the Chinese government. Mitt Romney deserves one. And now he can send a thank you note to Pocahontas, because all of these establishment attacks have only made Trump much, much stronger. The Democrats fear Trump. They know that he can get those blue-collar Reagan Democrats in the Middle East and Midwest and Northeast who've been left behind by the Clinton, Bush, Obama economy.
All right, so now I want to ask you this since I have you here, and we go through this all the time. Are you confident? Because I don't know if you'd speak to Donald, you don't speak to Donald. You could tell us if you want, if you do or not. But are you confident that when push comes to shove, if he's the nominee, he will go after Hillary Clinton on everything the way no other candidate will? When I'm talking about the women who say she intimidated and threatened them. I'm talking about the tape that says she bragged about getting a child rapist off. I'm talking about everything that no one else will touch.
Steve, he already has. When Hillary Clinton accused him of being a sexist, he immediately got right into this, calling her an enabler in Bill's sexcapades and commenting on how she had abused his victims. That's a shot right across her bow. And what did she do? She immediately announced she doesn't want to discuss this anymore. That's not going to work. She's going to have to answer questions about Juanita Broaddrick and Kathleen Willey and Paula Jones and Christy Zurcher and Helen Dowdy and Becky Brown and dozens of other women that Bill has assaulted and then Hillary has threatened and tried to intimidate.
I got one more for you, Roger. What do you think's gonna? We do have? Okay, no. Okay, what do you think's gonna happen tomorrow? Tomorrow night?
I think Trump will win Arizona. It's ground zero in the fight over immigration. Half the votes in Arizona are already in the bank as absentee ballots. So there's a squandering of votes for Bush candidates like Rubio and Bush, who are no longer in the race. Utah will be much closer. I think, frankly, Donald's attack on Mitt Romney may have backfired. 6 out of 10 Republican primary voters in Utah are members of the Church of Latter-day Saints and Mormons.
Roger, always great to talk to you, my friend. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Steve.
Take care. Roger Stone, ladies and gentlemen.